Good evening, and welcome to a very special four-part series of Talking Sports with Dan and Hay. My name is Hayden Steinhardt. I'm sitting here with my co-host Dan Zielinski, and on the evening after Selection Sunday for the college basketball tournament, we'll be spending time going through each of the four regions, making our picks, and hopefully giving insight to those tough matchups we'll see in the first round. As always, thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show. Okay, why don't we start with the West Quadrant of the NCAA tournament bracket first? We're looking at the first matchup here, Gonzaga, the 1 seed, versus Georgia State, the 16. Do you see anything, Dan, there that may be interesting, or do you think that's just going to be a wash? Gonzaga wipes the floor with them.
Yeah, Gonzaga's going to win by over 20 points there. Easy.
Yeah, they've been one of the most consistent teams the entire season. I mean, maybe the competition they've played, hasn't been up to par with some of the Power 5 conferences. But they're one of the best rebounding teams in the country. They score, some of the most points in the country and shoot the three ball really well. I really don't think Georgia State keeps up. That game may get out of hand in the first half.
Definitely.
Moving down to the second matchup, the winner eventually likely playing Gonzaga. We have the 8 seed Boise State at 27-7 and the 9 seed Memphis at 21-10. This is one of the interesting matchups I think a lot of people are circling. Do you have any real insight into that, Dan? Anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, like you said, this game's going to be kind of really interesting because I could see both teams winning, and Memphis, frankly, is a team that I think coming into the season, most people expected to be probably a top 5 seed, top 6 seed with the amount of talent they were bringing in, having the top recruiting class this year. It's kind of surprising to see them in this spot, but they're also coming off a loss to Houston. Really wasn't close. And Boise State is practically playing at home. I want to say this game is in Idaho, maybe.
It's in Portland, I believe. But they're pretty much at home either way.
Yeah, same place. And Boise State's defense has really been good pretty much since early December with their ability to force turnovers and just share the basketball too as well. So it's going to be interesting. I'm picking Memphis in this game. I just think in a game that's kind of a pick 'em, you go with the talent and hope that Penny Hardaway can get his crew going. But definitely on paper, Memphis has more talent and I think should win this game. But I guess we'll see how it comes down.
Yeah, that does show a little bit. You mentioned, the talent. Memphis is a better rebounding team than Boise State. They average, 4 more rebounds a game. And that's one of the things, the big stat that, I'll look at a lot that people ignore is rebounds, right? Because if a team's getting a lot of rebounds as a whole, that typically means that they're either A, good at defensive rebounding and they get a lot of their own misses, which is something you really look for in a team that's got a good record. A team that doesn't accumulate a lot of rebounds throughout a game is typically either missing a lot of their shots and they just do not hit the offensive glass very hard, or they give up a lot of offensive rebounds on the other end. Something else to note from this game, Memphis is scoring over 75 points per game. Boise State's only at 69. I mean, that's a fair difference, when you look down the stretch. But like you said, Boise State only allows around 60 points per game, Memphis at 68, so there's a big difference there. Both teams shoot the three-point percentages in the mid-30s, so that's one of the games for sure to circle.
For sure.
I also like Memphis as well in that one, though.
Yeah. Either way, the team that plays Gonzaga in the second round is going to get smoked, most likely. Yeah,
potentially. Moving down to the next game, we've got the 5 seed UConn at 23-9. A little bit of a surprise this year. Not sure that many people expected them to be this high up. They're playing the 12 seed New Mexico State. Nothing, not a lot really jumps off the page for that game for me. Both teams are very similar in the way they shoot the three. They both give up around the same amount of points per game. They both score around the same. Both rebound very similar. The only real difference is, when you're looking at the seed number and college basketball's net rating and their KenPom number, UConn is in the high teens and New Mexico State is in the high 70s, low 80s.
Yeah, I like UConn in this game. I think they've been playing well. They're 6-1. They ended the regular season 6-1, and overall, I just think they have more talent, obviously. And Danny Hurley is a really good coach as well. And between R.J. Cole and Tyrese Martin, they've been playing phenomenal, shoot well from three, and I think as long as New Mexico State isn't letting it up from behind the arc, I think UConn should be able to escape with a victory here.
Yeah, and New Mexico State only shoots 33% behind the arc, which isn't really any jaw-dropping statistic. You know,
No.
UConn brings a lot of size to the table as well. That can really aid you in the offensive rebounding. You know, a lot of these games do come down to how many second chance points you get and how hot you get from behind the arc. So I like UConn in this one as well.
And I think if New Mexico State shoots at their average, I think this game could be in danger of being a kind of a double-digit win for UConn. UConn allowed their opponents to shoot 36% this year from three, which was pretty good, one of the better teams in the Big East this year. So, I mean, if UConn can hold them to below kind of their defensive average, I think that's only going to help UConn's case.
A lot of people picking this one as the upset. I really don't see it as strongly as some of the other ones. You know, looking at the next game, the 4 seed Arkansas 25-8 playing the 13 Vermont at 28-5. You know, that's a game that I see a lot of people circling Vermont as a potential upset bid just because Arkansas has been so up and down this season. And you know, one of the eye-popping stats from this matchup is Arkansas really does not shoot the ball well from beyond the arc. Only 31% on the year. That's one of the worst teams in the country. Vermont shooting at 36%, one of the high, you know, mid-high average. Couple other, you know, stats that jumped off the chart for me here is Vermont only giving up 60 points per game. That's really, really good. Arkansas giving up close to 70. I understand the SEC conference is high scoring, but you know, you can't be giving up 70 points in every game in the tournament and expecting to win.
Yeah, this is a game I'm going back and forth on. Arkansas, like you said, it's kind of been up and down, and frankly, I don't really trust them a whole lot come tournament play. I'll still probably end up going that way, but I'm still kind of on the fence. Vermont, I like that they're kind of a 3-and-D team with in conference play, they're shooting 41%. Defensively, they're shutting teams down, and they really have good guard play with two of their guys who, between the two of them, are averaging just over 33 points a game, shooting about 42% from three. So, I mean, if those guys can get going and if they're hitting a lot of threes, I think Arkansas could be in trouble here.
Yeah, the one thing I see that Arkansas may have the advantage in is obviously the speed game, right? They like to play fast. You know, yeah. Vermont turns the ball over a lot in this game. I could see Arkansas running up the score quickly, getting into that double-digit lead, and now you've got the ability to start taking risks on defense, creating more turnovers, you know, and trying to grow that lead. So I think that's the one place that Vermont needs to be careful, right? If they were to start, you know, they just, you know, a couple sloppy passes, a couple silly turnovers, and Arkansas gets out and running, that's really where they can start to fall behind.
For sure.
Looking at the next matchup here, we've got the 6 seed Alabama at 19-13. Really generous seeding from the committee this year, it seemed. Team with, you know, well over double-digit losses, being all the way up at the 6 line. They're going to be playing the winner of Rutgers Notre Dame. I'm just going to cut right to the chase. I have Rutgers beating Notre Dame. They have a proven track record, won 4 ranked games in a row in the Big Ten, which is, as we all know, a very tough conference. Assuming Alabama plays Rutgers, I really like Alabama to win that matchup regardless of who they play. I mean, they're a really good offensive rebounding team. They bring a lot of size. They score over 80 a game, you know, which is extremely challenging to do in any conference. They do give up 76 points a game, though, but on the other hand, Rutgers, you know, only scores 65 a game. Nothing jumping off the charts again about them shooting the 3-point percentage, one of the worst in the country at 31%. I just think their athleticism and size get to Rutgers or Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm on the fence here about this game, too. I think Rutgers does beat Notre Dame, and that's kind of first what I'm waiting for before I kind of pencil this game in. But Alabama, I think, got this seed because of who they beat early on in the season. They beat Gonzaga. They beat Houston, who, say what you want about them, they did have a good record, even though I don't think they're that great of a team. They beat Baylor. They beat then Tennessee, LSU, and Arkansas in conference play. But then this is also the same team that as well lost to Iona, Missouri, and Georgia. Missouri and Georgia are bad. So I think Alabama's just a bad team in general. I know they like to play with pace and get up and down the court, but they do commit a turnover every 1 in 4 possessions. They're a sloppy team, and I just don't know what you're going to get from this team night in and night out. So
Yeah,
I kind of like Rutgers. If Rutgers can get past Notre Dame, I think Rutgers is kind of hot. They're kind of playing with nothing to lose. They got a lot of experience with guys who were on their last NCAA tournament team, and also just guys who have been in that program for a lot of years now.
yeah. Rutgers is one of the most dangerous teams. I think a lot of people are circling them as a potential Sweet 16 bid. Just because of who they've beat and they've done it consistently. And streak throughout the season. But this is a game of two teams. Assuming it's Alabama Rutgers that both have had really high highs but really low lows.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got Rutgers who loses to UMass at home. Just like Alabama loses to Iona. These quad 3, quad 4 defeats, which are just unacceptable. The reason Alabama too is looking at a 30 net and 25 in KenPom is just because of those Gonzaga Houston wins. I mean, you eliminate those, they're probably not in the tournament at all.
Yeah, and what was that, 3-4 months ago? Those games were.
Yeah, those were very, very early in the season.
Yeah, it's a completely different team at this point compared to when we first tipped off the college basketball season. So I just don't trust Alabama, and
I have Alabama winning this game, but no more. I can't see them getting any further.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think they get past the second round. Kind of going into that next game, Texas Tech and Montana State. I'll be really quick with this. I think Texas Tech wins. I don't think it's going to be close. Texas Tech has a great defense, well-coached team, and as long as they have an average offense, I think they're going to win multiple games here in the tournament.
Yeah, I'm going to go completely against the grain here. This is one of the games I've got circled as a major upset on the calendar. I mean, I really like the way, there's just some real drastic differences. I mean, Texas Tech is again in that situation as one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the country, 31%. I mean, that's exactly how you win these tournament games is you get hot from behind the arc, right? And if we're just basing it on, the average day, Montana State shooting 37% from three, one of the better teams in the country. They obviously Texas Tech's defense is going to be their number one. They're going to hang their hat on that. But Montana State scoring 78 points per game. They rebound fairly well. I mean, I just think this is one of those games that's going to be a lot closer than everyone thinks, and Montana State may get the upset.
So are you picking the upset?
I'm picking the upset. I think Montana State pulls this one out. I think it's really close down the stretch.
How far do you got Montana State going?
I have Montana State going to the Sweet 16. I think, if they get past Texas Tech, I mean, you're playing the winner of Alabama Rutgers. I just don't trust either of those two teams. I mean, Montana State's been one of the more consistent teams down the stretch at 27-7. I know it's a non-Power 5 conference team, but you're in the tournament. You got to throw that stuff away, right? If you got to look at teams playing, a little bit above average or above average because they know they need to perform. I mean, that's exactly what happened last year with Oral Roberts and some others. I just think the Vegas betting for this game, I don't know what the line is. It's probably close to 10 points. I really think it's going to be, a one-score game.
Texas Tech's defense is just so good. Like I said,
but their offense is potentially really bad. That's my problem.
Have to be average on offense, and they're going to win multiple games. I got Texas Tech going far. We can touch on that now or in a couple minutes once we get through the rest of the West. But
let's touch on that in a couple minutes. Yeah. I know there's a clear disagreement there, but I mean that's kind of the beauty of this whole tournament.
Oh, definitely, and I mean you're spot on to pick an upset here at some point because there's going to be a major upset, whether it's in the West or a different region. So
yeah,
I mean Montana State does have some players.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll mention too, this is a little unrelated to the West region, but no one has ever picked a perfect bracket before, right? So, when people go in and pick their bracket, you can be a generalist and pick very few upsets, try to win your bracket pool. But if you're that guy that's going to be the first person to pick a perfect bracket ever, you got to pick some really, really strange upsets that no one is going to think of. Because otherwise, everybody would pick the perfect bracket. You'd have thousands of them every year. So,
exactly.
I mean, I'm not shooting for a perfect bracket, but, basing it on the averages and the numbers and just looking at both teams, I really think that game is one to circle. Moving on to the next game, let's do that. We spent a lot of time on this one already. The 7 seed Michigan State, 22-12, coming from the Big Ten. Playing Davidson, the 10 seed, 27-6 from the A10, kind of a letdown loss there against Richmond in the championship for Davidson. Still a really strong team. I have Michigan State winning this game. Michigan State brings just a little bit more size. They hit the glass really hard on the offensive side. Both teams shoot the 3-point shot very, very well in the high 30s. I think this game is going to go, above the average scoring. This game maybe into the 70s easily. But I just think Michigan State, with their defensive minded, philosophy coming from the Big Ten, eventually just shuts down Davidson down the stretch.
Yeah, it's always hard to doubt Tom Izzo come tournament time, but frankly, this is one of his kind of weaker teams he's had in recent years.
Agreed.
And the fact that playing pretty much in Davidson's backyard, I don't think helps them. I think Michigan State's one team where it doesn't kind of really matter just because they're so well coached. But I'm going with Davidson in this one. I just haven't been impressed with Michigan State all year. Davidson has played well pretty much all year. They kind of blew that game against Richmond the other day where Richmond, I want to say, scored with like 19 seconds left.
Yeah, they were up like 4 or 5 points with like 2 minutes left, and Richmond went out like 8-1.
I mean, Michigan State could easily win this one. I just think Davidson's going to pull it out.
Yeah, the 7-10 line is always a toss-up. That's one that you really don't want to just pick the higher seed on if you're trying to pick your bracket. That's really a game that usually goes 50-50 every year.
Yep.
But yeah, that's another one to circle. The winner of that game likely loses the second round to Duke, assuming Duke gets through, and we can jump on that right now. The number 2 seed Duke, 28-6 coming out of the ACC. Really a strong season. Coach K's last year playing the 15 seed, CSU Fullerton from California. This is Coach K's last year. I mean, there's no way they're losing in the first round, right?
I mean, Cal State Fullerton, too, coming into the season was predicted to finish towards the bottom of their conference. Obviously, they've exceeded those expectations because they got to the tournament. But Duke is loaded with how many lottery picks? I don't think this is going to be close. I think Coach K is going to at least get one tournament win in his final season.
Yeah, I took a peek at some of the stats here at CSU Fullerton, one of the worst teams ranked in the net that's in the tournament.
Yeah.
They do not rebound very well. Low 30s for rebounds. Duke is in the high 30s. I mean, Duke scoring over 10 points more per game. They both give up around the same points per game, but CSU Fullerton, another team that doesn't shoot the three-pointer well. They start jacking up threes, get down 10 points. I really see this thing kind of, inflating to 20-point game really quickly.
Totally agree.
I don't think there's a lot to worry about here for upsets.
No, not at all.
This may be one of the more obvious picks, but, we've been wrong before.
So, who do you have going to the Elite Eight in this bracket?
In the Elite Eight from the West, I really like Gonzaga. I mean, they're the most complete team. They bring a lot of experience back with Timmy, in the post. The other thing is you've got Chet Holmgren, who obviously no one can guard. He gets, 5-6 blocks a game, whatever it is, at being 7'2". I mean, they obviously have a new set of guards, but again, they're all very quick. They take really good shots. I just don't see them losing in the first 3 games. Do they play Duke as the 2 seed in the Elite Eight? I think it's likely that they don't. Duke may get through the first round, and if they play Michigan State in the second round, that's going to be a really tough game because Michigan State is used to playing against, top-notch talent. And then on top of that, if they somehow get through Michigan State, now you're potentially playing Texas Tech at the 3 line. I mean, that's going to be 2 really, really tough games in a row. So I like Gonzaga to go to the Final Four and win the West over Texas.
I'm surprised you don't have Duke in the Elite Eight. I figured with you saying Texas Tech was going to win 1 game.
I said Texas Tech was going to potentially lose to Montana State. But yeah. I just think that's one to circle for an upset pick. But, assuming Texas Tech does get through because they're the higher seed, better team overall, I just think Duke has a very challenging path to get there.
Yeah, I picked Texas Tech and Gonzaga to make the Elite Eight. Gonzaga, for all the reasons you mentioned, they're loaded. I mean, they're the number 1 overall seed for a reason. And Texas Tech, I'm really high on this team. I have been all year and probably for the last couple of years. And I think defensively they're really good. What worries me about Duke is just kind of how they're limping into the tournament. I know people say don't put all your stock in the conference tournament, but that is the most recent we've seen Duke play, and Duke's defense over the last few games has been terrible. They do have a lot of talent. They obviously have guys who are probably 2, maybe 3 lottery picks. But
Yeah, and you mentioned the
they're
conference.
just so young and inexperienced. Where Texas
Yep.
Tech, even though they got a lot of transfers, those guys do have more college experience than Duke does.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned is the conference tournament, right? And a fun fact for all the viewers out there: no team that has lost their first game in a conference tournament has gone on to win the national championship. So that's not to say that they haven't won a few games in the NCAA tournament, but they have not gone on to win it all. So that's just something to take into consideration for your brackets.
Good fact. Yeah, Gonzaga, I think, is going to come out of this region.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Loaded with talent and definitely a favorite to cut the nets down in April.
Yeah. Yeah, and with that, we'll end the first part of this 4-part series of the Talking Sports with Dan and Hay show. Hope you enjoyed. Hopefully we were able to give you some positive insight on your bracket picks for the West region.